Question number 4, the Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr. Speaker. To the Minister of Finance, does he stand by his statement that the government came into office with a plan to lift New Zealand's economic performance?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, yes I do. In fact, I think it was an understatement. I would now say we came into office with a very sound plan to lift New Zealand's economic performance, and everything I've read about what other governments are doing in recent times has indicated to me that we are right to focus on longer-term structural performance in the economy, not just the quarter-to-quarter numbers around recovery.
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Which of the following elements would he rank as the most important to his self-confessed very sound plan? High unemployment, no wage growth, increasing prices, stalling the economy, or doubling the deficit by continuing upper income tax cuts that a primary school child could tell him he and the country can no longer afford?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, listening to that list sounds like a description of the last couple of years of Labor in power, actually, where there was zero wage growth, there was 5% inflation.
Order. The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr. Speaker, be a refreshing change for the Minister to talk about this government rather than the previous one, as you've previously ruled.
The member, when making a point of order, will make that kind of comment. The member should reflect on the question he asked. He asked which of these following facts that he inserted in his question was... I can't remember the last part of the question. But when the member asks a question like that, the Minister's at liberty to latch onto some of those facts and to talk about them in a manner that the member may not have expected when asking the question. I mean, discipline when asking questions is the secret in this place if they want accountability. As the Minister hasn't actually finished his answer, the Honourable Bill English.
Yeah. Well, as I said, that sounds like a description of the last couple of years of the economy under Labor, where it did fall, real wage growth was zero at the end, there was 5% inflation, unemployment was growing, and the 2008 budget, Labor's last budget, projected a decade of deficits. Now, I'd like to say to the member, if those are his concerns, he should look in the mirror, but he's never needed much encouragement to do that.
Chris Tremaine.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the Minister of Finance, what steps has the government taken to lift New Zealand's economic growth?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, well, the most recent step has been the tax changes which came into place on the 1st of October, which reduced income taxes across the board, reduced company taxes, therefore reduced the tax on work, savings, investment and exports, and increased GST and the effective tax rate on property. However, there's been other aspects of the government's program. We have a very large program of investment in infrastructure. We are reducing the number of public service bureaucrats and making sure we've got efficient frontline services. We have an extensive program of changes to the excessive regulation of this economy and invested in lifting business innovation and research.
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Speaker, to the Minister, how can he maintain that he's lifted New Zealand's economic performance when the June GDP figures were less than a quarter of what was expected, that they declined for the third quarter in a row, and that the New Zealand Institute of Economic Research estimates that growth actually went backwards in the latest quarter?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, as I said to the member before, the government is focusing on the longer-term structural strength of this economy, and that's where it is focusing its policy. In the shorter term, the reason the economy is not growing rapidly is because New Zealanders have made up their own mind to save more and spend less, and they need to do that because the excesses of the economy under the previous government simply couldn't last. So households have made the decisions that are slowing down the recovery of retail spending and the housing market.
The Honourable Rodney Hyde.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the Minister of Finance, I'm sorry?
Order. The member will just ask his question. The Honourable Rodney Hyde.
I'm sorry, Mr Speaker, that's so rude.
On no order. Now look, I say to government members, order. I say to government ministers, I've let them get away with a bit much today. We won't have any more of that. The Honourable Rodney Hyde.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. To the Minister of Finance, does the Minister agree that one of the central planks of lifting New Zealand's economic performance is reversing the incredible flood of red tape that has tangled up this country with 9 years of Labor government, and that this government is making good progress in establishing the proper principles of good lawmaking to reverse the trend that it inherited?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, yes, and I'm pleased the member asked that question because sorting out the regulatory mess that's been left by the previous government is not a glamorous job. It is a very difficult job that requires persistence, and that member in his capacity as Minister for Regulatory Reform has, in my view, done an excellent job, and I'm sure the economy is going to benefit from the efforts through long-term higher growth rates.
Question number 5, Dr Cam Calder.
Thank you, Mr